I'm not. This is better than the Lighty, right, than last week.
It is better.
It is much better. I'll tell you, I
It is
realized
much better.
I had the white. I had the ambient filter on the camera instead of the white filter, meaning that obviously naturally. Whereas this one, I look a little bit better. I changed it back. It's all good. But hello everyone. As we wait for people to come in, another week, another a lot to speak about this week, and major breaking news today, which we'll touch on in depthly, I should say, and we'll touch on in depthly. And we touched on it last week, and we touched on it from a couple of different avenues, but we'll definitely touch on it in a more like a matter of fact kind of manner because it has actually happened. If I can speak, that'd be great. But before we kick things off, I'm your host, Ari and Nathan, as always, and I'm joined by Nathan, as always, once again. Now, how was your weekend, my friend? How was your week since we last spoke?
Well, look, Carlton win, but all my predictions go absolutely south. So I guess it's either one or the other. And it seems like I got Carlton this week, but it was an interesting week of football. I feel like there's results maybe I didn't expect based off my tips, but some good and bad. Saturday night was not a good night for anyone who had free to wear or even paid TV. There were just two shocking games on, but there were some good games, to balance it throughout the week.
Yeah, Saturday night was shocking. In fact, Saturday night was bad, and they saved all the. Even Saturday in general was bad. I mean, the Sydney GWS game delivered to a little bit of an extent, but Brisbane blew Fremantle out of the water, and then the Dogs Hawks was shocking, and then we destroyed West Coast, and obviously North continued to be uncompetitive. But it was good. Like, how I say every week that we lose, it's good that we don't have to speak about Carlton. Now it'd actually be good if we could, but that's not really the point of the show. So let's just speak on other things. But we got a lot to speak about, as I mentioned from the top. Obviously, the big breaking news today was Tassie. Big breaking news today was Tassie getting a team announced in 2028 or being officially launched in 2028. So we'll touch on that. I'm going to touch on some different avenues from that. So like some potential Marquee players that Tassie could go and poach. New AFL CEO Andrew Dillon. So a big busy week in the admin side of things for the AFL. So we'll touch on that. And then finishing up, should time permit, we'll be speaking about the Tigers, a little bit more on-field stuff, speaking about the Tigers, and then the Swans as well, potentially. And then we'll finish up with a review, or the preview even, of the round. So, without further ado, let's kick things off with Tassie 2028. The 19th team has been announced. Tasmania, the Tasmanian X something, which I'm sure we'll speak on, will be accepted, implemented into the competition by 2028. There's still a lot of logistics to kind of go through what they're actually going to be called, whether or not they play VFL for a couple of years, where they played out of, is the stadium going to be built in time, etc., etc. But we spoke about this last week, so I think we'll just have to carry on the conversation. It has come very quickly. It's come very quickly. 2 weeks ago, there was almost zero talk. Last week, the wheels started moving, and then all of a sudden, 7 days later, a 19th team. So immediate thoughts, because it came, like I said, it came out of nowhere. So immediate thoughts on your end.
Well, it's good for the state, obviously. Long time coming, right? And it was probably the right decision. The only thing I don't agree with is, we'll probably touch on it, being the 19th team rather than taking over another team. But look, that I guess like I said, we'll talk on that later. And if that involves introducing even a 20th, it's definitely a deserved football state. When we look at teams that have come in recently, well, you can say, well, probably not that much there to warrant a football team there, but this state, definitely, 100%. I thought it would come in sooner, actually. When I saw 2020, I was like, oh, that's a while away. That's 5 years away. A lot can happen just in 5 years. So I was expecting 2025 when the VFL team's coming. I think we said that a couple of weeks ago that, 25 would probably be the year, but they're here. Still some things to go and things to be decided, but there's an official announcement now, and we can actually stop speculating. And
yes,
we're here. We're here to talk about facts for once.
Yeah. Like you said, it's good to actually speak about something knowing that it's actually happening, and which doesn't really happen because a lot of what the AFL media is speculation. And if this happens, could this happen? Maybe this might happen. Whereas this is definitely happening. What we do know, 2028. Yeah, I would agree. It's quite further away than what I thought it would be. 5 years. I think we spoke about this last week. Normally, it's 3 to 4. I think the Giants was in '09 and they came in 2012. And then the Subs was '08 and came in 2011. So those were both 3 years, I think. Or they would have been around about that mark. But I I would rather it be longer because it gives them more time to like make sure that it's not that it's done properly and it's not like how the Suns were run, where if you've heard anyone speak about anyone who was there, they were run like a shambles for the first kind of um, for the first like couple of years even. So yeah, good to see that it's actually happening and we've got a time frame. A couple of different avenues we could go down, and I think there's quite a few talking points. We'll touch on some potential marquee players that the Suns or the well, I think that's kind of a good segue. What are they actually going to be called? Because we all know it's Tasmania, and there's been a whole debacle around the Devils being owned by Warner Bros. Or whatever. So I don't know how that's going to happen. There's been a lot of different names thrown around. To me, it's the Devils. Just get it done. It just makes sense. Like otherwise, the Tigers would make sense, but obviously Richmond would probably have something to say about that. But to me, it's cut and dry. Just get the Devils name, Tassie Devils, put it away. It shouldn't even be thought about, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I've actually got a different like I agree on the Devils part, 100% for sure. Because literally in the under 18s, the Talent League, TAC Cup, whatever anyone knows it by, Tassie Devils are a team. They've got an under 18 competition for under 18 team for the boys and girls. There's not an issue there, which weird because the
Yeah,
Talent League is a product of the AFL.
there's a
It's
good
not a
point. Yeah,
separate. The AFL owns that league, right? But I don't know if I would agree with calling it Tasmania because if it's going to be played out of one stadium in Hobart,
right.
I don't know. It's just odd. It's sort of like if it's like calling Geelong the Victorian Cats if they were the only Victorian team, even though they're in Geelong. It's like I don't know. I just am very like 50-50 with it because like are they really they're representing all of Tasmania, but they don't play. Their stadium isn't in multiple locations in Tassie. It's just in one central spot. But I wouldn't hate it being called Tasmania. I don't
Yeah.
know, just a bit undecided with it.
Well, yeah, you do raise a good point because I was trying to think about other like it's not like when the Bears were the only team in Queensland, it was the Brisbane Bears, not the Queensland Bears, right? Which
But even in the cricket though, the cricket and the basketball. I mean, sorry, not the basketball. The basketball is Tassie Jack Jumpers, but the cricket you've got Hobart Hurricanes, and they're the only Tassie team.
yeah,
So
yeah, it's a good point. I actually haven't thought about that. There you go. So if well, the debate is around I didn't think we'd be going down this path. So you think they should be what? Where they're playing out of? Hobart? No.
yeah, I think it's pretty sure it's Hobart. Oh
Well,
no, maybe it's Launceston. Whichever one it is, whichever one
yeah.
it is.
They're building a new stadium, so I assume they're going to be playing out of that. But wherever they are played, do you think they should be called the Hobart X or Launceston X or whatever?
Oh, I would. I wouldn't be like if that was the name Hobart Devils. I probably wouldn't disagree with it. I'd say fair enough. But then you could also say, well,
Okay.
Carlton don't play in Carlton, Collingwood don't play in Collingwood.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so there is that. I don't think it will happen. I think it will stick with Tasmania, but you know, I'd like to know the perspective from other people who are in Launceston who are like, well, getting to those games isn't really realistic, right? Well, I'm sure it is, but it's not the closest of journeys. So I wonder how many will travel to watch their team regularly when they are in Tassie.
Well, yeah. Well, that raises a good point, right? And we'll touch on the stadium a little bit later on because I've got a couple of points written down. But yeah. So if they are called like Hobart, whatever, or Launceston, whatever, that kind of would lend itself to to me thinking there might be a 20th team and another team in Tassie, but that also to me wouldn't make sense. But in the same vein, it's like if you are from Launceston, and would you go for a team that's called Hobart something? Like if I was from did people in Gold Coast go for Brisbane? Would you think?
Yeah, sure. It's frankly, did got people in Gold Coast care about the football?
Okay, well, yeah, but
Barely,
in
as
in
it
theory,
is.
in theory,
I'd
do you think
assume
there would be a connection there?
it's actually tough to think about. I would say a little bit of a percentage may have, but I don't think they all would have. I just it's sort of like people in Melbourne going for Geelong if there wasn't a Melbourne team type thing. It's like, well, I don't know. They're not really where you are. They're sort of a bit away.
Yeah,
Can you sort of call them your team, your home team in a sense? But
yeah. Well,
it's
Macquarie.
interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to butt in and say the Macquarie Point where the new stadium is built is in Hobart.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it is an interesting point. That's something that I wish I didn't think of, and something the avenue which I wasn't going to go down when I asked that question. But if we're just going to assume that they're going to be called Tasmania something, because I think that's kind of the avenue which AFL are probably going to go down. Is it like forget the whole Hobart Launceston thing? To me, it's Devils, cut and dry. Unless
yes.
you have, would you agree?
Oh yeah, no, it has to be the Devils. Just like I said, if the under 18s have no issue with that, and they're part of the AFL's system, like why is there an issue? It's not named after the character from Looney Tunes.
Well, I had no idea that was ever the thing, so that surprised me when I heard
Well,
that.
it blows my mind it's even did like that's actually an issue that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Like
because
how
I didn't realize that the talent league was called the Devils.
yeah, they came back into the comp I think 2019. So they were
Thereabouts. Yeah.
back in the TAC Cup, but they've always been around. And yeah, they've been going for the last 4 years now as the Tasmania Devils, and there's never been an issue with that.
Yeah, I don't see a world in which it's not. I think they'll get it done. I do think they'll get it done. I don't think it's that big of an issue. So that's probably the first question mark over it, what they're actually going to be called. I think subsequently that also be like, what's their colours? But I think that's kind of who really cares about that. The second thing, their stadium, right? So there's a new stadium obviously being built in Macquarie Point, which is in Hobart. That stadium only holds 23,000. That is going to be built, I think, by around about 2029, if I'm not mistaken. That stadium will be finished. So, do they play exclusively out of there, or do they go up to Launceston at times throughout the season as a part of the home games, kind of like what Carl do with Marvel at the G and the G? Because if it's a Tasmanian team, I think it's only right that they share it around a little bit. But also in the same vein, is a 23,000 seat stadium adequate enough to host big games and obviously finals eventually, right? Because I don't think you can host finals in the ground at Launceston. I think that's actually bigger. That might be bigger than the new stadium, but 23,000 to me can't host finals. So there's one issue for it. But do you think, if I'm going back to the original point, do you think that they should share it around and go up to Launceston at times throughout the season?
Well, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like how many games in a season are we actually going to have by then? Like, will it increase, decrease? Like, I don't know if we're looking at 24, 25 rounds by then. I'm going to just assume 12 games, 12 home games, sorry. Let's just say 12 and 12. That each team's playing 24 games by then. I'd assume they
Okay.
do it 8 and 4. That probably
Yeah.
seems fair.
Yeah. Who would you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I would assume that something like that would make sense. I don't see them, especially when they build the new stadium. I don't see them. I don't see them doing it half and half. Because if you're just going to do it half and half, just keep the stadiums that you've already got, right? They're building a new stadium, so I assume that's going to be their home ground. Is that obviously the aim of every AFL football club is to play finals, right? When obviously, if the Suns have never played finals, so their Metricon situation has never really been an issue. the Giants have played finals at their home ground, played a couple, and every Melbourne team, even Geelong, play them at the G. So is 23,000 enough? Because to me, as soon as I read that, I was like, they can't play finals in a 23,000 seater stadium. But there's no bigger equivalent.
I, I do think it's enough, really. Like I don't know how many would turn up, but I honestly couldn't see them filling. They would get close to filling it out for every game, but I don't know. My whole thing is I'd rather a full stadium than empty seats. Fill it out.
Yes, I agree.
And if people miss out, people miss out. But I reckon 30. I don't know why they didn't make it 30K. I feel like 30K is a nice evenish number where 15K you're going to expect minimum each week, and that's 50% of your stadium filled, right? But
yeah,
it's serviceable. I think some fans would be pretty upset when that time did come, but I'd rather fill out a stadium. I'd rather the MCG be 100,000 full every final than be 70,000 full. It's just
I agree. Yeah,
fill it out.
Do you think there's an issue with the construction of it? Like, do you think it should be bigger, or do you think 23 is enough? Because I'm gonna assume this comment is accurate, and I don't see any reason why this comment would be a lie. But if Bloodstone holds 20, and then UTAS holds 19, surely, and they get relatively good crowds for Hawthorn games and North games. It's not exceptional, but it's not bad, right? Surely they would have it to be more than 23, heading over to even 30, 35, because Marvel's what, 55, give or take 50, if we want to be conservative, right? And that doesn't host finals anymore, right? Because obviously they've got the alternative for the G. I surely like that doesn't make sense to me. Surely if you're going to build a new stadium generally, you would back your club in and you would back the hype around it as long as you get it right to get it to, obviously, because it's not like we're marketing GWS and Gold Coast. Tasmania's a footballing state, right? So the crowds are going to be there, 100%. This isn't going to be a Gold Coast or a GWS situation where they struggle to get crowds. No chance. There will be crowds there. Surely you should build it more than 23K. Or is it a thing of, let's build one with 23K, let's sell it out for 3, 4, 5 seasons, and then let's build a new one for 2040, 2037, and then that holds 55, 60K, and then we can play our games out of there.
It's, I don't know. It's just a real, like, I guess there's no choice, is there? What's the alternative? But I was looking now at their average or their highest crowds, and this is in Launceston. The highest they've ever gotten is 20,000 in 2006, which was Hawthorn Richmond. But otherwise, I don't know. The crowds aren't really there as much.
Yeah, but for a new Tassie team, surely they'd be there, right?
I'm expecting it. I'm just like have this other idea that I don't know, the hype might just, if they're bad to start off with, people just won't jump on until they're established. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think they're like that because they're a football state, right? It's not like the Suns or the Giants where they aren't a football state. So in order to get people going to games, they need to be good. Tassie seem like people who are passionate enough about the game to just go no matter what, right? So I don't think that should be an issue. However, it's you don't really know, right? Because Australia supporter base, right? If your team doesn't perform well, people don't go, right? It's not like any other club. It's not like most other codes around the world and supporter bases around the world from different teams and different sports where your team could be rock bottom of the table, but people will still show up, right? Hell, we saw Melbourne against North get 23K, and Melbourne have one of the best teams in the comp, right? And even Richmond versus Suns, we'll speak about that later, but they got 23 at home, right? Like, come on, that's a joke. So maybe it could be an issue. But obviously, yeah. So there's obviously that in terms of the capacity. Thoughts on the roof as well? A lot of people are angry about the roof. I see no dramas with it at all. Because if you're talking about attendance, who's going to want to go to 5 degrees pissing down rain, it's raining sideways when your team's versing Tassie away. Surely you just want to be under the roof, remove all weather conditions, and it'd be a better spectacle for the person attending, I think.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with it. I don't. I mean, is it? I don't know if I'm basing this off like that picture of what it's meant to look like, right? It looks like it's like opens. What's the word? Like where the sunlight can still come through. That's what it looks
I know
like,
what you mean. Yeah.
doesn't it? Which makes me sort of question. It's like, isn't the whole reason Marvel's roof is always closed because of the complaints from broadcast and that?
Well, that's because Marvel is built the wrong way. I assume if they just build
Yeah.
the stadium
Right.
the right way, the sun won't be an issue. The
Yeah.
sun will go across the ground, which will be fine.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, but no. To answer, no, I don't oppose it. I don't really see the issue with it. Like, how does it really affect? I think the summer is where it would be an issue if they do play cricket out of there. Would be quite a sauna in that place, but
Well, it'd be retractable. It'd be like Marvel.
it would be okay. Then
Yeah.
then still no issues with it.
Yeah, people are saying, "Oh, football is an outdoor sport, so you need to kind of not acclimatize, but you need to account for the weather." I think that's stupid. Just play with the roof. Surely we'd want more people going to games and players playing better football, better like. Obviously, the talk about Marvel is that closed roof, dry conditions, perfect deck, fast deck, meant to be at least high scoring games, right? And we've seen teams who play high tempo, quick ball movement football with a lot of handball chains moving the ball forward play better at Marvel traditionally, right? So if that's going to be the same in Tassie, it's just going to encourage better ball movement. It's going to encourage better games, and it'll be better for fans, I think, because I think on Saturday, I think the weather was shocking, or Sunday. One of the days the weather wasn't great. It might have been Saturday, and they played a game at Marvel, and I would rather have sat in a slightly worse ground in Marvel Stadium than the G in that respect. But yeah, that's the stadium stuff out of the way. I think we've covered that. Now, there's two more points I want to touch on. Firstly, is a point that we spoke about a little bit pre-show, and we were quite confused about, and that's the VFL. So they've said that they will be playing the VFL. They said that the team will be playing in the VFL from 2025. This doesn't really make sense to me because who is going to be playing in the VFL in 2025? Is it going to be 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, or what AFL player is going to come drop down to sign for the Suns to play VFL for 3 years and then play AFL? This is really confusing because I know the Suns and the Giants did it, but I feel like it was a different scenario. I feel like they did it differently.
Well, it's just it poses the question of, is this like a transitional program where some of the players that are in this team move forward and sort of equal programs of the AFL eventually, where the systems will be similar and processes will be quite similar, so you transition players easily into the AFL. But yeah, like you said, like I'm assuming that the under 18s will continue, right? So do you then toss up? Do you toss up between, do you play 18s football, or if you're good enough, and even there's a Tassie boy this year who will probably go top 10. It's like if he was 6 years time, when it's his draft, when Tassie's first draft, right? Do you say, we'll go play VFL for our team? We can't guarantee you'll even end up at our club, but go play. So it's just, it's a bit weird because, like we said, it's like, well, VFL is VFL. You're there for a reason because you're not good enough to play AFL football at that, either, whether it's at that current week or in general, So
yeah,
it's just a weird one. I don't really see the point. I don't. I think it's just more of an establishing thing more than anything. I don't think player-wise it's going to have much impact on, transitioning when the actual AFL team does start.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. I think obviously the Suns did it and the Giants did it, right? And they did play VFL for a couple of years, but obviously it comes with a lot of question marks because obviously there's going to be compromised drafts. So how far back to the drafts become compromised? Are Tassie going to be picking up 16-year-olds? Or are they going to pick up 16, 17-year-olds, playing them in the VFL for 3 years, and then they're going to make their debut at 2021? Or are they going to get a bunch of delisted players? So say like I don't know, a player gets delisted from Carlton, and then they go play in the Tassie VFL team just to fill the team and just to get culture and etc. And if they're good enough, they can play again in 3 years for the AFL team. Is that would that be their way in terms of bridging? Because obviously this goes back to another question about talent pool, right? The talent pool will naturally be diluted because of another team, and the issue with the Suns and GWS was it was practically 12. It was what the squad of 22 on the day. It was 12 18-year-olds and 10 30-year-olds. There was very few kind of 24, 25, 26 year olds. So would you say that this VFL kind of transitional period allows for delisted players from other clubs to play in the VFL for Tassie for 3 years, and then if they're good enough, if they prove themselves, they can then get another shot at AFL and at the AFL level. So if you're 23 in 2025, you can be 20 3 years. So you can be 26 by 2028 and you're playing AFL football again despite being delisted. Would that be the rationale, do you think? Or something along those lines?
It seems like a reasonable idea, sort of as acting like a platform that most mid-season draft prospects use, where you sort of go back a level, but you play as much as you can and try and prove that you can come back up again. It's just probably the question of what age bracket are we looking at in this VFL team? Is it literally just the same as any other team? Are they picking from even the local leagues in Tassie? They've got pretty relatively strong local competitions, especially in that. I think it's the Northwest. Don't quote me on that, but there is a particular region in Tassie that has quite strong football talent. Is that where you're taking your team out of? So it's a weird prospect, this VFL team, just generally thinking about it, because at the same time, will they just turn into what we've seen a bit with the non-affiliate teams of the VFL, the Bullants, Coburg, Williamstown, Port Melbourne, where, well, not all of them, but some are just struggling because they don't have any correlation with any AFL teams. They're literally picking out of the local leagues, and that's it. And then they're just there to make the numbers up, really, because they can't compete. So it'll be very interesting because I think it could definitely backfire a little bit, just in terms of you don't want to lead into it with a VFL team that's sucked for 3 years and there's really nowhere to go in that sense.
Yeah, I do agree. It does have a lot of potential to backfire. But you'd think, it goes back down to how they're going to approach this, right? Because you assume the 2027 draft will be compromised, definitely. So heading into their first season, they'll be compromised. I reckon the 2028 and 29 will be compromised to some extent, right? So that's 3 drafts at least that will be compromised, none of which I think will involve the VFL system. That the first 3 years of the VFL. So it is tricky because, like you said, if they poach or if they just get all the delisted AFL players and a bunch of 16-year-olds and they suck for 3 years, and then all of a sudden that team as it is, plus a couple of 18-year-olds from the draft, are pushed into the AFL system, that's not going to be good for them. So they need to go about getting their list composition right, in my opinion. Before we move on to some potential Marquee signings, what do you think this would do to the talent pool of the league? Because not only is there going to be a 19th team in Tassie, Gil has obviously said that there's probably going to be a 20th. And we could be here all day speaking about a 20th team. We're probably not going to do that today because we can't bother. But if there's going to be a 19th team, that's already going to damage the talent pool as it is. If there's going to be a 20th team, whether that be obviously WA, there's been talks. Obviously, Northern Territory is probably the obvious one. With the likes of the Eagles struggling as it is, North struggling as it is, the Suns struggling for a long time, if we're going to get into a position where there is 4 or 5 extremely good teams in the competition, and then 3 or 4 absolutely horrible teams that win 1 game, 1 or 2 games every year, is that the position we're going to get into?
That's where I could see it heading, and the way I look at it, like a draft pool in general, I reckon you've only ever actually got 10 to 15 certainties in a draft pool. Yep. The rest don't ever really amount to anything spectacular, right? They'll just become your role players. And every year it's top 20 that everyone wants to hear constantly about, but up to after the top 20 is where the talent isn't already spectacular after the top 20. And follow the Craft of the Draft podcast for more on everything after the top 20, right? But
Very good.
it's only glimpses, right? Like, and learning a lot about it this year, there is quite a big gap between your top picks and, your anything after the second round. Really, it's a lot of hope because these players, they're not naturally gifted. They're very hard workers, and that is probably the difference between the first round and then anything afterwards. The first rounders are usually they're gifted with that ability. They've got it right. Afterwards, it's a lot of hard work, and it's enhancing those skills they're learning and developing well, and it's getting better. It's definitely getting better, but the talent pool it will be terrible. You're relying on VFL people now, and we've seen how much of a difference there is between AFL and reserves in general. Same Waffle, Sample. There's such a big difference, and we see that when players come up, they just can't match it. Not all. I mean, not all of them. Some can, but I think it's really negatively just going to affect the whole competition. And then even you think about 2027, you wouldn't it would be the worst year to finish in the bottom 4, 5 on the ladder.
Yeah. So definitely, teams who are going to be on the slide in that period are going to be killed because they're going to have no draft picks. No one's going to want to come to them because there's going to be this new toy in Tasmania that they probably want to go to instead if they're a free agent. That 3-year block between 2028 and 2031 is going to be not good for them at all, right? So I think, I do agree. I think the talent pool is going to be a massive, massive issue because we've seen, West Coast are fielding a waffle team and getting spanked by 100 points. If that's going to be a full strength team for one of either Tassie or the 20th team for their first couple of years, we could see some beltings, some absolute beltings. And I do agree that the talent overall is improving when you're looking at the draft, but I don't think it's going to be improved enough to the point where both Tassie and the potential 20th team are going to be competitive straight away. It's going to take a lot of years of struggle, and does the competition have patience for that anymore? Because they didn't have they saw what happened. They saw what happened when it was the Suns. The Suns struggled for a while. Obviously, they brought in Ablett, which helped, and some of the other players that they brought in helped, and they got good relatively quickly-ish, but then fell off again. The Giants got good even quicker and then maintained that for quite a few years. They need to make sure, this is the most important. This is the most important expansion in AFL history when it comes from an admin perspective, because they've had 2 goes at it in recent times. The first one has failed. The Suns have failed, in my opinion, so far. And the Giants, off the field, you can say what you want, but at least on the field, they've made a couple of prelims, they made a grand final. They've at least succeeded to this point. If Tassie are extremely uncompetitive for the first couple of years of their existence because of the lack of talent, because the talent pool has been diluted so much, that could be a big, big issue. And forget about a 20th team. We might go back to 9. We might go back to 18 relatively quick, in my opinion.
It's a big call. I mean,
it
is, but it's not a bad. It's a pretty spot on call in that sense. But because there really isn't. You've got to get it right because it could just. Right. I feel like if you're at the top by the time 28 comes, you'll be there for a while. You hang on to what you've got if you're at the top, right? And how hard will it be? Or not how hard, but it won't be easy to just fall down. You'd have to genuinely just turn to crap, and your players have to ditch you. If you've got good players, you're quite set.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Yeah, and speaking of good players, it's a good segue onto the next point that still touches on Tassie, but some potential marquee players for Tassie. Now, of course, every time a new team comes into the league, there's going to be some marquee players. The Suns, obviously, Ablett. The Giants should have been Buddy Franklin. Obviously, that didn't happen. But when we're looking at players who are out of contract in 2027, so the year before obviously at the end of 2027. So the off season before Tassie into the league. If we're going down by names, there's Patrick Cripps from Carlton, which no, don't even. There's of the ones that would be high profile enough for there to make a difference. Jordan De Goey, Zach Merritt, Caleb Sarong, Took Miller, Noah Anderson, Tom Green, Lockie Whitfield. I was going to say James Sicily, but probably not. Will Day, Cozzy Pickett, Grundy, Daniel Rioli, Jaden Short, maybe Rowan Marshall, Jack Steele, Bailey Day, or potentially probably not Jack McRae. That's quite a few names in there that could be pretty tasty if you're looking at it from a Tassie perspective. Who would you if you were from that list? Obviously, you have the list in front of you. I assume anyway. If you were Tassie, who would you go after? Because you got to take into consideration age as well. Because probably the best player in that list right now would probably be Cripps, but he'd be 34, I think, 35 or 33. So coming towards the end of his tenure.
It's actually quite a tough question to pose. Like,
yeah,
because do you look at the name, or because I've never started a football team in my life, right? But I would always start with a good defender, right? Like, and I think, well, I should think about it. Who was GWS's marquee? Like, they didn't really actually have a massive name. Like, they had.
It was meant to be Franklin. And then obviously
yeah.
So what? Boy, Scully? Scully was probably
Scully. It was probably Scully at the time. But even he was still, was he only...
Yeah, he'd only been drafted.
He was yeah. So, Young. I don't know. Well, speaking of Young, Hayden Young. That is probably one I would...
Yeah, well,
he's not really a marquee name, though, is he? But he's just someone you'd probably like to start your team with.
Yeah. Well, by that time, he'd probably be one of the better kind of intercept halfbackers in the comp. I think is a star as it is, right? And give him a couple of years in the AFL system, he will be very, very good. The top Tom, if you're looking at what you need to build a list, I think you can get away with kind of plugging holes in the middle and off half back and half forward. I think you need pillars. You need pillars.
Yeah.
So I don't know who of that list would probably be that. I mean, Peter Wright's on that list, but I'd be shocked. Grundy, well, the comments here, I actually don't know how old Grundy is. He's just listed as expiring in 2027, so I assume he'd probably be quite old. So I don't think he would be one of them. Griffin Logue is listed on that list. He's probably not a marquee name. And then, of course, there's Rowan Marshall, who if you're talking about potential for kind of big men in the league in terms of ability right now, potential, he's probably the best on that list, as well as Tom McCartan, of course.
Yeah, it's quite a tough question really to ask. I was also thinking about it, I would probably sacrifice defenders as well and good forwards for just midfielders, because I was just thinking, would I be comfortable with chucking 3 18-year-olds in the centre bounce?
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah, obviously
not that. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Noah Anderson and man there that probably, if you're looking at midfielders as well as Tom Green, are probably the two standouts in that list.
Yeah.
Took Miller as well, probably a little bit on the older side, I'm pretty sure. So, of course, they could go to the Carmichael Hunt route. Funnily enough, I was actually, for some reason, I was on his Wikipedia last night, and apparently he was really good for 4 weeks playing in the midfield. So maybe they could go. Maybe they get Ryan Pappenhausen to play to play rucker.
I just want to know how you got the Carmichael Hunt on Wikipedia. What even?
Surely we all go on just search up random AFL players and then just go through the wormhole. No, I'll tell you what it was actually. I was looking at. This is what it was. I was looking at AFL players from overseas who have overseas kind of heritage, and some of the names from different countries are quite bizarre. I think Dane Zorko's part Slovenian. There's something for you, and then obviously I fell on Carmichael Hunt. So there you go. Yes, of course. Yeah, as well as this, there will be players in between now and then who obviously come out of contract and then re-sign to 2027, etc. They obviously won't have a lot of trade kind of capital, unless I did hear this on the Tradies podcast, Mitch Cleary and Sam McClure, regarding Tassie. I think it was anyway. Could they give Tassie some concession picks that they are forced to trade? So could they give Tassie pick 21 in the 2028 national draft, but they have to trade it?
I could. That would be good. I think. Well, like in terms of fairness, but then you also ask the question. It's like, well, you're taking a gamble to say that X player is worth pick 21 come 2 years time, right? Because pick 21 could be a complete bust. So
yeah,
I'm not. I wouldn't mind that actually, but I feel like it would be for. I'd say have to be after the second round picks. I feel like clubs, especially established clubs, won't take a gamble on second rounds, and or if it was concession picks, it have to be first round picks, right? Like you've at least probably got a 70% chance a first rounder will amount to something decent.
I don't think established clubs would do it, but I think it's a good kind of hypothetical to pose, I guess. But quickly finishing up, if Tassie, question without notice, because I thought of one, I think it's quite a good exercise. If Tassie were entering the league next year, and you could pick a forward, midfielder, ruck, defender in the comp, who would you take? Not out of contract, just pluck them out of anywhere.
Ben King up forward.
Really?
Yeah, he'll leave eventually. I don't buy what he's saying. I don't. I just no, not at all. Backline. It's Lockie Cowan, because we spoke about this pre. I think he's certain to leave once Tassie come in.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously
there we go.
As well. So out of all defenders in the competition, you reckon Lockie Cowan?
Yeah. Look, if I'm a Tassie supporter, I want homegrown boys in your team, just generally. And who knows where he might not even be good in 5 years. But I'm assuming if it was right now, I'm hoping he is right. Anyways, and then midfield. Midfield's tough. A lot to choose from. Probably Matt Rouse. I'd say Matt Rouse, because I'm just sort of thinking you don't want someone
gutting Gold Coast, taking Jared Witts as well.
Pretty much. I don't even know how to put in the ruck. It's weird because I'm sort of thinking. I know you said next year, but I'm sort of thinking 5 years as well. It's like you don't want someone right now that in 5 years will be.
You wouldn't take Dusty.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my three. Your three?
Ruckman, quickly.
Ruckman. No, I'm passing. I seriously can't think that quick. I'll pass that to you.
Okay. No, yeah. I reckon forward. Ooh, it's actually interesting because obviously, like,
it's tough.
You wouldn't pick like Jeremy Cameron, even though he's probably the best player in the comp. You wouldn't pick him. You wouldn't pick Hawkins. You wouldn't pick Lynch. You wouldn't pick Mackay. You'd probably pick Curnow, to be honest, or Max or Ben King. Either one of those three. Just for different sake, I'll say Max because I don't want Charlie to leave. So I'll go Max. Defense. I don't agree with the homegrown thing. I just reckon just take the best available. Yeah. So I'll probably go Sam Taylor because I think he's the best. Yeah. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, KU defender in the comp. And midfield, Rao, Andy Brayshaw, Sarong, one of those types. Tom Green. I'll go. Well, if you want a modern day midfielder, a player who can go forward and impact, you're probably looking at. I was going to say LDU, but probably not. Actually, no. Yeah, we'll go Lucas Davis-Uniacke, and then I'll go Rowan Marshall as a ruckman, considering he's out of contract when they come into the team. There you go. There's my four. Have you thought of ruckman yet, or Tom DeConning? Great choice. Tom DeConning, great choice.
He'll be gone by then anyway.
He fucking will. He definitely will. All right, that's enough Tassie chat. We spoke about Tassie for 45 minutes. Jesus Christ.
45. And we said, will this be a 30-minute chat? Yeah, thereabouts.
Thereabouts. I don't have the clip. I don't have the clip handy, but Nathan somehow getting your big call wrong when he was so out there is actually the funniest thing I've ever seen. This is one of the best things, if not the best thing, to come out of this show. It's great.
Is that saying something about this show this is the highlight of the year so far? Am I
No,
wrong?
no, I wouldn't say that.
Prediction.
I wouldn't say that. I reckon that's an indictment on you, if anything, on your on your prediction ability.
Not my best work, but I don't know. I just didn't have faith in it. And it came through eventually. So we're here. 19.
We are here.
19 teams.
20th team quickly, yes or no? And if so, who?
Well, you have to I don't want to buy each week, so yes. And if so, I feel like NT would be just great for like football as a community, right? Like just you'd love that aspect of Australian culture to be in the game, right? But I'd say in terms of if you're gonna get a crowd, probably Canberra.
Yeah, obviously there's a third team in WA rumoured. Eddie Maguire's all over that.
Yeah.
So could be there. I don't see Northern Territory, with all due respect. I don't see that going well.
Yeah.
I don't see Canberra going well either. I think it has to be another team in an already existing state. So pretty much Tassie, or pretty much rather South Australia or WA, in my opinion. But I don't run the AFL, and I don't want to run the AFL, so I could be horribly wrong, and I probably will be. But anyway, let's move on. Another thing that was announced this week and probably got overshadowed. New AFL CEO Andrew Dillon. It is practically. I don't know if it's confirmed, but it is in a sense. Well, regardless, new AFL CEO will be announced soon. Okay, quickly. Obviously, we don't know a lot about Mr. Dillon, so we're not going to speak about him as a businessman, unless you've done the research, which I'd be shocked. No.
No.
Okay. I don't blame you. What would you like to see from the new AFL CEO, whoever it may be, just generally, about the state of the game?
I saw Jared Wheatley I saw the SCN clip, and I actually agreed with most things he said. And the first one, change Friday night times. Flick that off. That's a stupid one, right? But it's just there. It would be good. Look, if you're an AFL CEO, they're all about leaving a legacy of some type. You know, Gil's done it now with Tassie, and like they wanted to. You start with implementing something umpire-wise, right? Like just something new, something different, and even looking at your MRO, like change the game in a positive way that will stop such negative, feedback around it. Like. We always say, we're always here talking about it every week. An impact would be us not talking about it every week. And we can say, that guy,
got it right. He did his job.
He got it right. Exactly. But yeah, I would say that's probably the big one. I'd say just improve consistency on field. And look, we're never, ever going to get it because human error, it's always going to happen. It's always going to be a thing. But things like MRO, right, that can be improved. You can fix that. There will always be one or two where you just have to let it go, and it's just you can never get a right or wrong answer. But there are some instances, like we've talked about, where it's like you simply cannot be serious in whatever the verdict is. So, yeah, I'd say improvement around those areas. Strive to improve consistency and clarity on those type of, things in football.
Yeah, I would agree. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that clip, which is why we're speaking about it, and also when I posed the question to kind of myself, and obviously subsequently to you as well, AFL records back to $5, please.
That's the best one you've. That is a quality answer, and I was so annoyed on last week when I think Friday night at the St Kilda game. Footy records, $6. No, it just doesn't have the ring to it.
Yeah.
Don't
just get out.
Get rid of it. It is. I don't feel like like walking into the stadium. I don't feel it anymore. I'm like $6.
I think it's a blight on the game. To be honest, I think it's ruined Gil's legacy. It's one of the worst things. It's arguably the worst thing about the game right now, in my opinion. It sucks. So back to $5 a gill. Thank you. So I would like to remove all forms of technology from the game. So no score reviews, no score reviews, no like going after the fact to kind of look at an incident. And and subsequently, I think the umpire should determine the suspension for an incident on the spot, and that's the final. That's the verdict. Because that'll go well, I'm sure.
You've pretty much just contradicted it, like what I just said about clarity, and because you're basically saying, okay, umpire, make the decision. He's on report 3 weeks.
I hate VAR in football, and I hate technology in sport. I hate it. And also,
VAR is just
Also, well, that joke
in itself.
Yeah, that point is obviously slightly as a joke. I don't actually think that should happen. But basically, just stop going overboard with technology in general. Like, stop having 65 different camera like things for score reviews. Make it really simple for the score review people to do it, because that's one of the things that frustrate me the most. Like, let the goal umpires just do their job, right? That'd be great. I do agree. What I said I was being a little bit facetious there, but yeah, more clarity on the MRO would be great. I think add one more free-to-air game. Kind of what I said last week about my schedule. One more free-to-air game, ideally Saturday afternoon, not delayed. That'd be great. And no Thursday night footy as well. Going back to what I said last week, that's a very selfish choice. But yeah, they're the things. But mainly, AFL records back to $5 is a must.
I agree with that, and probably on the technology thing, even it's just again like make it simple. Even what annoyed me, I think, the Carlton game on the weekend, it was late. Like, it was one of those, did it hit the post or not? They spend 2 minutes looking at footage when they've got Snicko on that goalpost.
Yes.
I don't care. Yeah. I don't care which way the ball. Just check if it hit if Snicko picked it up. I know it's not called Snicko, right? But I always call it that. But the edge. Just look at it. It literally tells you if it hits it. You don't even need to look at the vision, and it will tell you. And unless it's, the only way it goes off is if, a player touches it, whatever. But then that's when you look at the footage. You see your thing, just make sure it lines up with the footage. Like, it's just stupidity that annoys me.
That would require sense.
Especially in close games as well, you're breaking momentum in those moments. Like,
exactly, like the momentum break in the Carlton West Coast game for that Matt Kennedy.
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. Charlie could have kicked 10 if that goal had just been given, right? But they're the main ones. Also, I don't know if this is an AFL thing, but I don't really want to pay $50 for a meat pie at footy. Like,
I'm just waiting for MCG to. They did it in the last 5 weeks where they did $2 meat pies and they do $2 hot dogs, which was just the best time of my life. Like, I had 3 meat pies in one game. Like, it was just. I was fed.
Or put Maccas in the grounds. That would be
that would, imagine that. That would just. It would make sense, actually.
That'd be unreal. Remember when Maccas used to sponsor the AFL? Or they're on the balls and shit?
Yeah.
They still are, aren't they?
They still are, aren't they? Yeah, I was going to
say. Get them in the ground. Fuck off your Red Rooster. I swear there's Red Rooster at Marvel or something.
There's not even Red Rooster. There's no Red Rooster anymore. They got rid of that for all those fancy...
gourmet
those
shit.
Fancy, gourmet stuff.
Just give me a triple cheeseburger. Fuck's sake. It's not that hard, is it? Honestly. Anyways. And this as well. Yeah. Just let people carry a slab into the game. Why not? I'm sure they'll fix it. I'm sure they'll fix a lot of fan violence. I think let's move on. I want to touch on the final point quickly because I have a gripe. I have a gripe, right? And if you saw the rest Twitter, you know exactly what I'm about to say. And I'm angry, right? I'm annoyed. So Richmond played for the Gold Coast Suns on a Sunday afternoon, 3:20. Good time slot, right? No local footy on or limited local footy on. It's in Melbourne. You're versing a shit team, so the ticketing won't be an issue, parking won't be an issue. It's great, perfect, right? Lovely stuff. And pre-game, the Richmond kind of socials and whoever does the graphics put out a thing saying, "Oh, we want 25,000 people there." Right? Firstly, you are probably you're probably the most passionate fan base in the land, right? You probably got the biggest fan base in the land, especially if you're going with membership base. Asking only 23,000 of you or 25,000 of you to rock up to a home game is a joke, right? And secondly, the whole thing about Marvel Stadium is a shit ground. Who would want to travel to Marvel? That has to be the most entitled thing I've ever heard from any AFL supporter base ever. There's two main culprits. It's the Richmond supporters and it's also the Collingwood supporters, right? Honestly, it's a spherical bit of grass that you can sit around. You're not exactly traveling to fucking China to watch a game, are you? Get over yourself. Honestly, get over yourself. It's the most petty, kind of ridiculous, stupid, like complaints that you could ever ask for. Oh, they could ever do. Honestly, we're playing a home game at our away ground. There was a season where Richmond played their last 8 games at the MCG. On what grounds do you have to complain about anything fixture related? Honestly, that annoyed the shit out of me. It really did. Anyway, yeah, and also think about like Geelong. Geelong's home ground. Sorry, Geelong's home ground is GMHBA ABCDFJ Stadium, right, or whatever it's called, right? They have to play 90% of the home games at the G. They have to travel an hour and a half to get there. You have to travel 20 minutes down the road, or 3 more stops on the train. Get over yourself, honestly. That really pissed me off, and I'm not having it. Anyway.
Look, I mirror those thoughts without the small man syndrome part of it. I must say, I'll mirror them, but I tell you that anger is just clearly
small man syndrome. I'll see how it is.
It's always been that way.
Shut up. Moving on. Sorry. I just had a bit of a grump. Anyways, also, the Tigers suck. The Suns can't travel. Apparently, according to this bloke over here.
I'll take that. Another terrible prediction, but fair play.
Oh,
Suns won a game out of the Gold Coast.
Round of applause.
That is something.
Moving on. Preview. Subsequently, let's look at the predictions. And the self-proclaimed prediction king over here has self-proclaimed. Sorry, quickly. It's hard to fit. It is. Because Marvel was sold out on Sunday. It was really hard to fit them in. I know. I get it. But anyway, as well as this, those haven't really worked out. But anyways, let's finish things up before we get sidetracked. Tips from last week. I got 4. You got 3. So that's another round to me. I don't know how many. We
did this up, wasn't it? I think I was up. I think it's even now.
I think it's even.
I'm up by 1 or it's even. Yeah, it's close.
Well, let's look at last week's run sheet then. Let's see. It's almost like I don't delete the run sheets, do I? No, we didn't actually look at it. We didn't do it last week, I think.
Okay.
Anyways, I won this round, which is great. And 4-3, even though we both said that we were going to do really well, which is an indictment on both of us, I think. But overall, I'm on 28, you're on 34. So I'm 6 behind. So I need a big week. I need a big week as per. I need a lot of big weeks, I think. Let's go. Let's start things off. Carlton, Brisbane, Marvel Stadium. Carlton will win. And who do you think will win?
Why do you ask me for Carlton? Like, is this? Oh, look, the Lions. The Lions will win this. Sorry, bold prediction from me. Yeah. I never tip against the Blues.
Yeah, because your tip against the Blues worked a treat last week, didn't it? It worked a treat. It
would have looked good if it paid off, and that's why I do it.
But did it?
Did it pay off? And I look stupid, but we move on.
Richmond, West Coast at the J.
Oh, geez. If the Tigers lose it, if this was in Perth, I'd actually probably lean towards West Coast. But seriously, if Richmond lose this show next week, there will be 15 to 20-minute segment knowing us, just chatting about them. But
Yeah.
Richmond.
Richmond, yes. Geelong, Adelaide at GMHBO.
Okay, well, I've said what I thought about Adelaide out of Adelaide. Geelong, okay, I should be careful because I've said some teams comfortably and it hasn't worked out, but I say Geelong comfortably in this one. 5 goals minimum. And I'll sit here. I will sit here like an idiot next week if it doesn't. But I do. I just if Adelaide could only knock off Hawthorn by 3,
you're digging yourself further. Here. Just keep digging.
Okay. Tell me. Okay, you John or Adelaide?
Geelong will win, obviously.
Yeah.
Suns versus Melbourne at Heritage Bank.
It'll be a good game, I think.
I agree.
Because Gold Coast, I feel like the last couple of years, they're always still playing for finals, even though everyone knows it's not going to happen, but they still are playing for it constantly. They're never out of it until the last couple of weeks. So I think it'll be competitive. Like, I don't know. I just see Gold Coast might actually upset them possibly, but you just have to go off raw talent and back Melbourne.
Yep, Melbourne win. I agree. In what's shaping up to be the match of the season, GWS versus the Bulldogs at the Manuka Oval. Tune into that one, folks. It's going to be great fun to watch.
The fake rivalry. I cannot stand this narrative of it's a rivalry. They played each other in a prelim and it was close, and there were a couple punch-ons. What? And they that's what they've lived off. Not a rivalry. Tough game actually, based off the GWS would be coming in with a lot of confidence. Bulldogs weren't ultra convincing, but I think the Dogs get it done because Giants can't win in Canberra.
I disagree. I think the Giants can and will win in Canberra. Freo versus Hawthorn over there. Both teams suck, but I think one team sucks more than the other. Phrasing. Gee, don't take that out of context.
Wow. Freo.
Yeah, no, I go Freo. Port versus Essendon at Adelaide Oval.
Essendon have to respond because I think they did sort of let down a lot of people's expectations, I guess, on Sunday. I think a lot of people were basing where they're really at based off how they performed on Sunday, which wasn't great. Adelaide's always very tough to go to, and my opinion's on Port, but in Adelaide, it's just such a different ball game over there. They're just very hard to beat over there. So Port Adelaide, but I think very close.
I agree. Port will win. Collingwood versus Sydney at the MCG.
This would be a cracker if Sydney were not coming off 2 of the most embarrassing losses in the last couple of years.
Scathing.
I still think it will be good. Think it will be good. It's been 7-day break for Collingwood by then. MCG, Collingwood crowd. Look, Sydney would really have to play out of their skin. They couldn't beat Melbourne there, so I couldn't see them beating a more hostile Collingwood crowd. So pies.
I agree. North versus St Kilda. St Kilda comfortably.
I opted out of this one, so I'll be watching this from home gladly. St Kilda.
Nice. Good. I'm glad you did. So just to make sure we have a person here to co-host with me next week, so you don't off yourself. But Saints will win. Great. So we've disagreed on 2.
It's always going to be harder the longer, the further the season goes on. We know what to expect.
Exactly right.
So,
that is all.
But we expected it to go to plan last week and it didn't. So,
yeah, well, I'm going to get 9. You're going to get 7. Sick. That's what's going to happen. Good. That is all. Done for another week and over an hour again. I think we need to change the expectations of this, to be honest. Yes, thank you very much for joining me once again, Nathan. It's been a fantastic show. Always a pleasure. Thank you all very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Blue Broad YouTube channel. Make sure you like the video. See you guys this time next week. Goodbye.